Karen
Got
cutting the
it.
lock on John's Jeep. Imagine waking up one morning to find your property violated, your privacy shattered, and your rights trampled, all by the very HOA that was supposed to protect the community. One power-hungry neighbor decided the rules didn't apply to her, and in her obsession with control, she crossed a line no one ever expected. What started as a petty dispute over property suddenly spiraled into something far darker, pulling in law enforcement and exposing shocking secrets. The question is, how far will an HOA really go? Happy family in living room. Life in the neighborhood had always seemed quiet, almost too quiet. The kind of place where families waved at each other in the mornings, lawns were neatly trimmed, and the HOA boasted about how their strict rules kept everything looking perfect. For most residents, that peace came with a price, an endless stream of notices, warnings, and fines. But for Mark, a hardworking father who had recently moved into the community, it felt like a fresh start. He had saved for years to buy his home, a modest but comfortable place where his kids could finally have a backyard to play in. At first, Mark believed he had chosen the right place. He kept to himself, paid his dues, and followed the rules, or so he thought. But in communities like this, peace never lasts. The same HOA board that smiled in the welcome packet was run by neighbors who took enforcement to an entirely new level. HOA board meeting with Karen enforcing rules. Among them was one board member in particular, a woman everyone referred to, half-jokingly, as Karen. She had a reputation for nitpicking every little detail, from paint shades that were one tone too bright to lawn chairs left out overnight. Mark didn't pay much attention at first. After all, he was busy with work, with family, with building a new life. But small signs began to appear that trouble was brewing. A notice slipped into his mailbox about a violation he didn't understand. A neighbor's quiet warning to watch out for Karen. And then the strange sense that someone was paying just a little too much attention to his property. The storm hadn't arrived yet, but the clouds were already gathering. Karen patrolling street with clipboard. At first, Mark tried to shrug it off. The letter about his so-called violation seemed like a mistake. It accused him of leaving a vehicle parked overnight in the wrong spot, but it was his own driveway, his own Jeep tucked neatly within the property line. He almost laughed when he read it, thinking surely the HOA had mixed him up with another neighbor. But the fine was real, and the notice warned of further enforcement action if he didn't comply. That was the first crack in the picture-perfect neighborhood he thought he had bought into. John receiving violation letter. The next week, another letter arrived. This time, it claimed his mailbox was not in compliance with aesthetic standards. The paint had supposedly faded, though it looked perfectly fine to him. The fine doubled. A week later, a third letter accused him of improper storage because his trash cans weren't pulled back quickly enough after collection. Every notice carried more intimidation, more threats. It wasn't just paper anymore. Mark began to notice Karen herself, standing at the edge of her yard, staring at his house whenever he came home from work. She'd jot notes into a little clipboard, her expression sharp and unforgiving. Once, he caught her snapping pictures of his Jeep as if it were evidence in a trial. Karen cutting lock again at night. Mark tried to reason with the board, sending polite emails asking for clarification, even attending a meeting. But the boardroom felt more like a courtroom, with Karen seated in the center like a self-appointed judge. She didn't want explanations. She wanted control. Then came the night of the lock. Mark woke early one morning to the sound of metal clinking outside. At first, he thought it was just a raccoon rummaging through trash, but when he looked through the blinds, his blood ran cold. There in the half-dark was Karen, bolt cutters in hand, crouched by the gate that secured his driveway. Within seconds, she snapped the lock and swung the gate open. She walked straight to his Jeep. John discovering damage, losing patience. Mark's first instinct was disbelief. Was she really doing this? Was she really about to take something that wasn't hers in broad daylight? He wanted to storm outside and confront her, but another thought stopped him. Let her finish. Because if she crossed this line, it wasn't just HOA harassment anymore. It was criminal. Heart pounding, Mark grabbed his phone and recorded everything. The crunch of the lock, the swing of the gate, The way Karen boldly climbed into the driver's seat of his Jeep like she had every right to be there. She fiddled with the ignition, clearly expecting it to start, and when it didn't, she slammed her hand against the wheel in frustration. That was when she saw his camera pointed straight at her from the window. She froze. For one electric moment, their eyes locked, her face pale, his expression unshaken. Then she bolted, abandoning the Jeep and hurrying back to her house like nothing had happened. Police task force arrival with flashing lights. When he called the police, he braced for indifference. After all, who would believe an HOA dispute could cross into criminal theft? But the moment he explained whose Jeep it was, the entire tone shifted. Because Mark's Jeep wasn't just any vehicle. It was loaned to him by his unit, part of an undercover task force within the local police department. Every piece of equipment inside, every modification belonged to law enforcement, and Karen had just tried to steal it. The officers didn't laugh. They didn't dismiss him. They told him to hold tight, that a report would be filed, and that someone higher up would be in touch. HOA boardroom confrontation. Jeep revealed as police vehicle. The HOA meeting that night was supposed to be routine, budget updates, landscaping proposals, the usual droning speeches. But word had spread quickly through the neighborhood. Karen had been caught. And not just caught bending rules or handing out petty fines. She had been caught on video breaking into Mark's property, cutting his lock, and attempting to steal a police vehicle. Neighbors filed in one by one, whispering, trading glances. Karen, of course, arrived first, chin raised, lips pursed in defiance. To anyone watching, she looked unfazed, but the tightness in her jaw betrayed her. And Mark? He sat quietly near the back, his phone in his pocket, the video saved and ready. Karen humiliated in front of neighbors. Karen began speaking, her voice dripping with self-righteousness. I have grave concerns about the safety of our community. Certain residents have been bringing in suspicious vehicles, attracting unnecessary attention and endangering the peaceful image of this neighborhood. I took it upon myself to investigate. That's when Mark stood. Slowly, deliberately, he connected his phone to the projector. The screen lit up. First came the image of Karen outside his gate, the bolt cutters glinting in the dim light, the metallic snap of the lock breaking, the gate swinging open, and then, the moment she climbed into the Jeep, fumbling with the ignition, her face fully visible. The room went silent. Halfway through the footage, two uniformed officers entered the room. Their arrival was timed with precision. The lead officer's voice cut through the tension like a knife. Karen Whitfield, you are under investigation for attempted theft of government property. Karen's protests fell flat, because in that moment, the illusion shattered. Family walking peacefully in neighborhood. When the police escorted Karen out of the HOA meeting that night, it felt as though a weight had finally lifted off the entire neighborhood. For months, even years, she had ruled with an iron fist, cloaking her harassment in the language of rules and community standards. But the mask was gone now, torn off in front of everyone. For Mark, the relief was immediate but not total. The arrest was a turning point, yes, but it didn't erase the exhaustion, the stress, or the countless hours he had spent fighting battles that should never have existed. Neighbors who had once stayed silent began to speak up. Stories poured out, tales of intimidation, arbitrary fines, trespassing, and harassment. For the first time, the community wasn't afraid anymore. HOA sign at sunset, Karen walking away. The legal process against Karen unfolded slowly, as such things often do. She faced charges of trespassing, attempted theft, and tampering with government property. The video evidence was damning. Her downfall became a cautionary tale, not just in that neighborhood, but in others too. Word spread through social media, through local news outlets, even through HOA forums online. As for Mark, his victory was bittersweet. He spearheaded a movement within the community to reform the HOA, requiring transparency, limiting fines, and preventing abuse of power. For viewers listening to this story, the lesson is clear. Power in the wrong hands can be twisted into a weapon. But one act of courage can ripple outward, inspiring others to stand up too. And as Mark stood on his porch one evening, watching his kids play in the yard, he finally felt it. Peace. Real peace.